All right, welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Monday, April 13th, 2020, and I am your host, Kim Mattina. I am a technology teacher as well as a gold product expert for the Google for Education team, a Google certified trainer and educator. And today I have on my show Mr. Craig Klement. And Craig comes, oops, hold on. Okay. So Craig comes to us from Dallas, Texas, and he is an RTI facilitator at Garfield High School. So why don't you explain a little bit about that?
It's actually Garland High School, but that's okay. Uh,
Sorry, Garland High
no,
School.
that's okay. An RTI facilitator, we have 7 high schools in my district, and each one of the high schools has one position, like mine, and I help work with struggling students, try and find out why they're struggling, and failing a lot of classes. Majority of the time, it's attendance issues, but every now and then, the student really just is not classified as SPED or 504, but they still need some extra intervention and support. So I try and help come up with a plan. And then I also still do a lot of training and coaching with teachers as well.
So you basically you're a resource for all the teachers in your school,
Yes, ma'am.
and you help align lessons for them to help the students be successful. Is that what you do, or do you give them more like strategies?
It's more strategies, but there are some teachers that do ask help with lessons.
Okay. Oh, that's unique. I like that. So you have a lot on your plate as well. Like you're supporting all the teachers in your school.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and then with the needs and everything, it could be demanding. So that's unique.
Yep. So I taught high school math is my background, but now I help teachers of all subjects. Specifically, my principal has charged me with focusing on English 1 because that's our lowest area as far as our state test scores.
Okay. And so how long have you been in your position?
This is, I think, my third school year now.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's great. That's great. I mean, I'm like we were talking before, I'm in a similar role where I push the tech into the content area. So like I work with all the teachers in my school, and I also provide training for them too. So I like it because it's not boring. It's always something new.
Yeah.
And it always keeps you on your toes. You're always trying to, experiment with new stuff and see how it works and make it better for the next class. So I find it challenging. S- So Craig, you're going to speak to us today about digitizing the math class with all these different ed tech tools, and I'm really curious to hear like what you've done to help your teachers, and like what you recommend the teachers do for digitizing the class, especially math. Like I always hear math teachers saying, I can't do this, I have the worksheet, they need to explain their work or whatnot. And you know I try to keep my opinions to myself, because I want to be respectful, but I think that it definitely can be done. I know that. So I'm glad to have you on, to hear what your strategy is to help the teachers do this, and then hopefully it'll help others, around the country as well. So, what are some like what how do you start off?
Exactly like you said, a lot of times math teachers have a hard time integrating technology into their classrooms. And the first two strategies I wanted to share, I actually learned from a mutual friend of ours, Alice. But the first thing that she suggests, and I've had a lot of success sharing this with teachers, is because a lot of times teachers try and have, our math teachers, when they're doing digital work, try and have their students handwrite digitally, and that is not the easiest thing to do, to handwrite on a screen. And so that's where a lot of frustration comes from math teachers. So one thing that I suggest, that Alice suggests, is to have the students still do their work on a piece of paper, because that works fine. That's great. And then take a picture and insert it into like a slide deck where every student has their own individual slides. That way they can show their work. Teacher has it all in one spot. So I've had a lot of success sharing that strategy with teachers just because it doesn't require a whole lot of tech use, but it still is beneficial. Teacher has all the work in one spot, and it's less frustration on the student and the teachers. So I definitely highly recommend just using Google Slides, take a picture of handwritten work, and then inserting that picture on each slide.
So yeah, because I mean, sometimes paper does work, right? We can't just eliminate paper lessons. Sometimes we can, but if it works on paper, use it, right? So like definitely capturing, your work on the paper and then inserting it into Google Slides is a great strategy because then at that point, you can give feedback in the speaker notes or in the comment tool in Google Slides, or even you can annotate in there as well, right? Do you find
Mhm.
teachers doing that?
Yes, they really like doing the leave a comment feature, and then I even have some teachers that are letting students give each other feedback and comments using those mathematical reasoning. What's it called? Critiquing the reasoning of others, and so trying to really build up our students' mathematical language and communicate and give each other feedback on problems.
Now, do you find, like, I'm glad to see that they're collaborating with their peers and then getting feedback as well, but like, do you find the teachers are actually using like the shape toolbar to actually highlight things that they want the students to emphasize on and then leave a comment, or are they just leaving comments?
For the most part, it's just leaving comments.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's interesting because that's very easy. And then how do they take the picture on their cell phone, or are they using the
Cell phone,
camera
we have Chromebooks, so they can take pictures with the camera. Yeah.
and then they just upload it right into the slide deck? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yep.
that's I mean, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's very simple. There's really not a
Yep.
lot of learning there to be able to do that. So that's a great strategy. And then so do you even find a lot of your lower end tech savvy teachers, or your lower end tech teachers using that strategy, or is that even too much for them?
No, I do see some of them using it. One fear that all teachers have with this strategy is you have to give every student edit access to the slide deck, and that's always scary because teachers don't have control in that situation, or as much control as they would like. But so I always tell them, kids are kids. The first time you do this, they're going to delete each other's pictures. They're going to mess with each other's slides. It happens. But the more you do it, the more comfortable students get with it, and they'll understand, and they start doing what they're supposed to do. But the first time, yeah, you will have students messing with each other. So
Yeah, that's
so
true.
all teachers have that fear, but that's just something that they need to face, and they'll get over it the more and more that they do it.
Right, right. Yeah, and then like just give them time to play with it really before you end up using it productively or whatnot might be a good suggestion. And obviously like go over your expectations with the students too, so that they know what's acceptable behavior or not.
Yeah, so that's a great strategy. Like even the first week of school, as you could use this activity as a get to know you sort of activity. Let the students get used to the strategy. Then that time when you dive into the math, then they know what's already happening.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, that's good. And so, what is another strategy that I really like that. So, that's something that everyone can do because we have Chromebooks or different devices with webcams on. So to me, that's like a no-brainer.
Yep.
We can all do that. So, what would be another, or maybe a step up to that you
So
recommend?
again, that I got that idea from Alice, and so in this next one too is stop motion animation with Google Slides. So I was in a workshop with her, and she showed us a video clip. I think it was The Amazing Race, that TV show, and these sisters were doing like they had to launch a watermelon off a catapult and try and hit like a statue or a knight in armor. And so the girl pulls back the watermelon and she misses several shots. Well, then one of them comes back and the watermelon hits her in the face and explodes everywhere. And it's just a funny video clip that causes everyone to laugh. But then what she challenged us to do was to try and graph the trajectory of the watermelon on a Google slide. So we inserted a picture of just a blank graph on the background, inserted a picture of a catapult and a picture of the knight and a watermelon. And then with stop motion animation, after we got that initial slide set up, we duplicated the slide, moved the watermelon just a little bit, duplicate the slide, move the watermelon a little bit, and so forth until the watermelon hits the night. And then we publish it to the web. She showed us a little trick at how you can change the URL from, because 1 second was kind of slow. So we changed it to faster that, so it moves faster. And so that was a really fun way to introduce parabolas. So that's how she introduces the whole concept of quadratics to her classes. One, you got a humorous video that made everyone laugh, but then, we're not really talking about the math part of it yet, but how just applying the math. We were just trying to get the trajectory of the watermelon. Actually, I skipped a step there. The first thing that we did was try and graph the trajectory in Desmos,
Okay.
and then we were trying to trace that graph with the watermelon.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think it's really cool. I didn't think about using stop motion animation slides in that way. So that's actually a nice new perspective, I guess, to look at it for teaching. I guess angles and distance and stuff. So that's actually really clever. I've used it in my computer science class, stop motion animation with slides, and had the kids actually create their own. But I introduced like the concept of coding and text-based coding using that, because I wanted them to see like there was no coding involved in that, and they all thought there was coding involved. So it wasn't a different way of looking at your logical thinking and along those lines. But that's interesting. I'm glad to hear that. I know Alice, like her math is her passion, so
Yeah.
she's really, she tries to not substitute but really like enhance what what you can do, and that's actually really clever to be able to use the stop animation for the parables.
Yeah.
I think that's really clever. So with that, so now you have that concept, and did you find teachers actually using that, or was that too difficult for them, or did they kind of just let the kids do it on their own and they handed it in? And what was your outcome with that?
Yeah, I've seen some teachers use it, because that one is a step up from just taking a picture and inserting it. It was a little bit more involved. So I think I've had a couple teachers actually use that strategy, but it definitely did scare some of the more tech novices.
Yeah. So what was some of the what was the outcome? Like what did they use it to teach?
The exact same
Same
lesson.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. And then what was like some of the feedback that you got from the students?
The students had fun with it, because normally you walk into a math class and it's like, okay, we're doing chapter 4.1, page 152, 1 through 33 odd or something like that. So it was just a change of pace for the class. They had a lot of fun, and it was a neat way to introduce a new concept, because there really wasn't a whole lot of math involved in that lesson.
Right.
It was a lot more conceptual, but I think the students had a better grasp of what the math meant throughout the rest of the unit.
Okay. So it was kind of like an introduction to the concept in the beginning.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. All right. So now we're progressing up the ladder a little bit here. So what would be the next strategy?
So the next Google Slide strategy, I don't know if I would call this one a step up, but it's using Pear Deck,
Okay.
using the Pear Deck add-on. And we've had a lot of teachers use Pear Deck on my campus, and really throughout the whole district. But we love that add-on. It really makes all the presentations very interactive. Especially in this remote learning environment, it helps out too, of putting it in, you can put it in student pace mode or in teacher pace mode. So I found what a lot of math teachers were doing was during the class, they had it in teacher pace mode. And then after the lesson was done, then they put it back into student pace mode, so students can go back and look at it after the lesson was over.
So what's the difference between teacher pace and student pace mode?
So teacher paced, like if I had also Pear Deck, this is another great strategy for all levels of tech use. Because if teachers are used to teaching class with a PowerPoint up on the projector, this is a really easy next step because it just adds that interactive piece. So whatever's being projected also shows up on the student devices. So they log in with a code just like you would a Kahoot or anything, or you can put a link directly into Google Classroom. Um, but then as the teacher moves through, like if I advance a slide, it advances on the students also, and then I can ask multiple choice questions. I can do draw, so I could put a blank graph on there and ask the students to graph an equation, so they can draw with their finger or pencil, depending on the device. Um, they can they have these draggable questions where you put little icons, so you could already have a graph on there and say drag this little red dot to the x-intercept, or drag this green circle to the vertex of this parabola. So it makes it interactive, and then while the students are doing those interactive pieces on the teacher device, I can see all of that instantly. So it really gives the teacher immediate feedback on if the students are grasping the concept or not.
And so I'm assuming that is the paid version of Pear Deck. Do you have a paid version or is that the free version?
We do have the paid version at our school, but and right now everyone can get the paid version with this
Right.
remote learning environment. There is a lot you can do with the free version, but the paid version does have a few extra features in it.
Okay. So are you finding your teachers, using that tool to interact with the kids and engage them, or is that something that they don't use? Like, as I have a seventh grade math teacher at my school that he's was playing around with Pear Deck, and he actually I told him create a Google slide deck with all of your problems or whatnot, and then
Mhm.
you insert the Pear Deck template into your slides where you can make it interactive, like you said, like have it be a multiple choice or have it be a drag question or whatnot. And then, but then, like, I think he was really trying to get it working and everything, and then everything happened with the COVID-19 and stuff, and he kind of just stepped away from it. But I think he was like he would have worked with it and continued to work with it because it gave him a lot of interaction with the
Mhm.
kids.
Yeah.
And then he had the free version with the 3-month premium, and
Mhm.
he was saying that you were able to get like metrics on the student responses, and you were able to keep that information and kind of track what they were doing and track progress a little bit. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So he was using it. I mean, he was definitely on board using it. It would, I just know, you know, he was using the 3-month free trial. So at this point or another, everything's so crazy right now with school closures that I'm not really connecting with him anymore to see what he's doing with it. But that's nice to hear that a lot of the teachers are using it for math.
Yeah. So I don't say this about a lot of paid tools, but to me, Pear Deck is worth the money.
It's worth
Even
it.
even if you don't have it as a school, just getting it yourself as an individual teacher, it's worth it. We've had Pear Deck the paid version for the last 2 years, so teachers are used to it. We had Nearpod the year before that, but we also had on a campus of almost 200 teachers, we had less than 15 using Nearpod on a regular basis. But
Yeah,
then
why is that? Because my school purchased Nearpod too, and not everyone uses it. Like, why? I don't know. I know they're very similar, but I don't know the interface
yeah,
enough to
They
critique
are
it.
they are extremely similar. I think Pear Deck's advantage is like if you already have a Google slide deck made, it's very easy to add those interactive pieces. Where Nearpod, you can import a whole slide deck, but I don't know if you can add the interactive pieces on each slide. Whereas I think you'd have to build it in Nearpod as you go.
Okay.
Uh,
So you have to build your presentation within Nearpod. You can't use Google Slides.
From the experience that I had, now that was 3 years ago that we
Okay.
had that, but yeah, it seems the teachers already had a Google slide deck created. It's really easy to add those interactive pieces to it
With Pear Deck.
with Pear Deck. Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Because I saw that myself, and it was, if you're using a presentation tool, it's easy to just do that. It was like a no-brainer.
right.
And then now I think they have a Pear Deck extension that you can download. I'm not really sure what it does. I just know that there's some type of there's more engagement. I think that
Yeah.
it does some kind of animation or and things along the lines when you're interacting with the kids, right?
Yeah, there's two things that it does. It's called Pear Deck Power Up. So one is if you have a GIF in your slide deck, normally Pear Deck would freeze it and it would just be a still image. But if you add that extension, that Chrome extension, then it'll allow the GIF to still play and be animated. But then also what it does is if you're in a Google slide deck, if you have one open, it'll add Pear Deck on your toolbar. So like where you have view, edit, file, or whatever, there will be a Pear Deck in
Oh,
your
on the menu option.
yep, on your menu options right in. And so you just
Oh,
you click the Pear Deck, and then a little sidebar pops up to add in your interactive pieces.
interesting. So yeah, I mean, maybe it's definitely worth exploring again, maybe after things settle down with all this. But yeah, that's good to know. So all right, so you got Pear Deck. So what would be the next strategy?
So one thing on are is there going to be show notes that are like shared out with people that are listening?
Yeah.
Okay, so far everything that I've mentioned, I have an example on the show notes. So if
Okay.
people want to go and look at the stop motion animation that I made with Alice with the watermelon, or I have an example of a Pear Deck activity designed just for math teachers, so they can click on those in the show notes and see examples of everything that we're talking about.
All right. Yeah, that'd be great.
So next, I want to shift gears to Google Forms. And I had two ideas that I wanted to share here. One is with branching forms. So with Google Forms, you have the ability to, like on a multiple choice question, whatever they select, you can go to a different section based off that answer. So I would build a very simple, because you can make it really advanced, but I just build a simple form where if they got it right, if they got question one right, then they go to question two. But if they got question one wrong, then it would send them to a reteach of question one. So you can make that reteach the exact same question. You can make it one of the similar type. But then what I would always include in that reteach is either like a YouTube video or a Khan Academy video, or even just a website that has the directions on how to solve that problem or the steps necessary. So that way the students can kind of go through a little self reteach and then try that question again. And I've had a lot of teachers that like that. One thing though with that activity, I wouldn't necessarily take it for a grade, and that's where a lot of teachers have the problem, because whenever you're trying to grade something like that, if you let's say I go through and I get all the questions right, so I got 100 on the form. Well, if I set that up as a quiz with Google Forms, it would say I had a 50 because I skipped all those other reteach questions. So I try and tell teachers not to use that activity necessarily as a grade, like a quiz grade, but more of a formative assessment of, are the students understanding? And the student gets immediate feedback. As soon as they hit next, they know if they got that question right or wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say don't make it a Google quiz. It's good to reinforce that because you don't always have to use forms for quizzes. You can use forms as some type of assessment or exit ticket or survey or whatnot, and it's nice to be able to get that information so that you do have the opportunity to reteach by branching. So yeah, I definitely agree. I think branching Google Forms is a great way to tier your
Mm-hmm.
students as well, differentiate and give them more support or even challenge them, because if it's too easy, then you can move on and challenge them. So you don't always have to go back, you could go forward. But yeah, branching Google Forms is very powerful. I definitely agree.
Yep.
definitely.
And you can make it pretty advanced, but I try and keep it just one reteach per question, and then whether they get the reteach incorrect or correct, I would just have them move on, because it can get kind of almost like a spider web
Yeah,
of
nested,
which. Yep.
definitely. You gotta figure out, like, remember where you were when you were branching off.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And then so you mentioned Desmos before. So Desmos, like, enlighten me on Desmos. I know what it is, but I don't really have any experience with it.
Yep. So most people equate Desmos with a online graphing calculator, which is true, and it's the best free calculator that you can find. As far graphing calculator that you can find, it's got some really great graphing abilities. Um, Honestly, I feel like I've learned more by playing around with Desmos than I did getting my math degree. It just really helps to make the math more visual. Um, and so that's a great thing for students that don't consider themselves math people, if they have a good visual of what's going on with the graph. But then also, to go along with the graphing, Desmos has these activities, kind of lessons that you can do. And same thing, students can join the activity with a code, or you can put the link directly into Google Classroom. And from the teacher dashboard, I can see what everyone's doing. I can see their work. I can see what slide or what page of the activity that they're on. I can restrict it to, like, I only want them to work on these 5 problems right now and not move on, or I could give them access to the entire lesson. Um, but then the teacher can see everybody's work all at the same time, which without the technology, in the past, you just have to walk around student by student, and by the time I get to the last student, they've been sitting on that same problem when everyone else is done. So it just gives the teacher immediate feedback and know which students need the help, and they can get them that help sooner and quicker.
And that's free?
Desmos is completely free.
Wow.
Yep.
I only knew Desmos can, as a graphing calculator, and that's it. Like, I didn't know that you were able to, like, have kids join and monitor all at one time, and can you give them, like, multiple problems to work on at one time, or is it one problem, like, per workspace, I guess?
So there's like one problem per, like, slide, I guess, or page. But depending on how you set it up, they could advance through at their own pace, or
Oh,
you can restrict them to only want you to do these 2 problems right now, or whatever.
okay. Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to check it out. I know, like, the math teachers who are more tech savvy, they use Desmos because I hear them talking about it and mention it. But again, like, I don't interact with Desmos.
Yeah.
There's no need for me to. I don't teach math, so it's nice to be able to get insight on it from a different perspective.
Yeah. If you go to teacher.desmos.com, that's where you can find a list of all their activities. You can search by content areas. So if you're doing exponentials or calculus or whatever, so you can search that way. They even have a search bar, so you can just type in something, or you can also search by activity. One of my favorite activities that they have is called Polygraph. It's like the game Guess Who, where you're playing against someone else and you're trying to say, is your person wearing a hat or is your person wearing glasses? So the polygraph will pair 2 students up in the class, randomly, and depending on whatever the content is, you could do one over parabolas or lines. So one person will pick one of I think it's either 16 or 25 pictures. So they'll pick one of the pictures of the graph, and then the other person is trying to ask questions or clues to try and eliminate to guess which one is the correct graph.
Yeah, look at that. Okay. Interesting. And I just went to the website and they have a lot of lessons in here geared for distance learning as well.
Yep.
So, and it's K-12, or is it middle school through high school?
They do have some elementary examples. Last I checked, there's definitely not as much as secondary, but they are getting some, like, fraction activities and decimal activities, geared for the lower levels.
Interesting. Okay. That's good to know. I'm glad that you mentioned that. That's good to know. So, and
Yep.
you're finding a lot of your teachers using this as well?
They use two main activities. The polygraph, that's a really big hit, and then there's also another one called marble slides or marble sliders, um, where typically, instead of just having students graph an equation, there'll be like these stars on the graph paper, and the teacher, or sorry, the student has to try and graph a line or a parabola, to where if they drop these marbles, it'll collect all the stars. So it kind of makes it a little bit of a game.
It's a game. Okay.
And I like that because also there's more than one right answer. Your graph can be a little bit different, but you still collected all the stars. And so typically in math class, there's always only one right answer. But I like the marble sliders because it shows kind of the complexity, in that we could have different answers, but both still be correct.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Now, did you ever use the Chrome extension Equatio?
Yes, I've used Equatio some. It's become more popular ever since I've been out of the classroom. So I know a couple of teachers on campus use it, but I think for the most part, they're still used to their old math type editor.
Yeah, yeah. Because I know, like, I worked with Equatio before, and with Jamboard, I try to I did like a app smash with Equatio and Jamboard, and I got a lot of positive feedback with that. And then I think Equatio does integrate with Desmos as well,
Yes.
right? So their graphing part opens up Desmos,
Yep.
right? So yeah, is it funny how they both interlink? And then there's another. I thought there was something else online. It's a web tool that you can go to a website. It was called Cog. Oof.
I don't know.
No, it was something cog something. Oh, I'll probably remember it after I hang up with you. But that was like a web editor for mathematical symbols and equations. What the heck was it? Cog codes.
Hmm.
That's what it was. Cog codes, I think. Wait, hold on. Let me look. Yeah. It's Code Cogs. Codecogs.com.
I'll have to
And
check that out. I've never heard of it before.
yeah, so it's kind of like Equatio, where you could put in like all of your it's an online equation editor, and you can put in all of your mathematical symbols and equations in there, but it's just web based. You just go to codecogs.com.
All right.
Yeah. That see, at least I remembered before I hung up with you. Wow, that was a lot of information that you shared today. That was awesome. Thanks, Craig.
Oh, no problem.
I really appreciate it. I think did you have any more to add? I think that was the last one, right?
And I had two more things, but
Oh,
I know you said you want to try and stick it to 30 minutes too.
well, it's okay. If you want to continue, you can. Well,
Okay. I'll
while
try and
it's
be.
while it's bright outside right now, so must be in a lull here with the tornado watch.
Well, I'm glad everything's going well. But I'll try and be brief. So another activity that I had with Google Forms, is I do for a lot of my administrative work. I use a feature in Google Forms that not a lot of people know about, called Prefilled Links, where, like, if I have a teacher that has to fill out this form for every kid that fails their class. So they're having to go look up in the grade book the kid's name, ID number, the grade, and all that. Well, I can get that all from our data management system anyways. So I run a report, and then I can pre-fill each of those questions in the Google form. So whenever the teacher clicks on the link, it already has the student name, the student ID number, all that done for the teacher already. And then they just have to fill out the stuff that I can't figure out from our system, of why the student failed. They're sleeping in class, not turning in homework, stuff like that. So you can do that same idea where you pre-fill links on a form and give it to students. So there was an activity that I came up with that I call Fix My Quiz, where it was a Google form quiz that's already completed out. So it's already got all the answers to the Google form done, but some of them are the correct answers and some are the incorrect answers. So for each question, I added an extra space to where the students have to write out or type out, was that question correct or incorrect? if it was incorrect, what mistake was made, and how do you fix it?
Oh, okay. So how do you do that in Google Forms?
So when you're in the edit page of your form, if you click on the, it's either the three dots or the settings wheel. Now I can't remember off the top of my head. It's probably the three dots. Um, there's an option under those three dots that says Get Prefilled Links. And whenever you click on that, it looks like it's asking you to fill out the form. So you type in whatever you want to be pre-filled. But then at the bottom, instead of saying submit like normal, it says Get Link. And then you can copy and paste that link and put it anywhere.
So what are you actually filling out in the form before you get the link? What are you actually
So
putting in those fields? Are you like, where are you getting, are you referring to another spreadsheet to get the pre-filled information?
for what I do for my work with the from the data management system, yes, I run a report and then I use that information to pre-fill. But on like that fix my quiz activity, that one I didn't need an extra spreadsheet from the beginning. I just typed in the answers from that quiz to where some of them were right and some of them were wrong.
Oh, I see. So okay, I gotcha. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So it's kind of like it's 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 got kind of like the same concept as a branched form, but it's pre-filled. So if they click on the wrong or the right choice, it takes them somewhere else, correct?
Not the way that I set up this one, but you could do it that way.
Okay.
But the way I have this one set up was I think I did 5 questions, and all 5 were just on the same page or in the same section of the Google form. But then for each of those 5 questions, whenever the student opens the link, all of those questions are already answered. So they just have to figure out, are they right or wrong,
Which one's right or wrong? Okay.
and then explain why or fix the problem.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I never thought of using the pre-filled links in that way. I honestly never really used pre-filled links before on Google Forms. So that's interesting. It's out of the box thinking there. So
It takes a little while to get used to doing the pre-filled links. It's not learning it wasn't the easiest thing for me, but now that I got it down, I can get them done really quick.
well, because like you said, it generates a different link than from the send button, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
for like that fix my quiz one, I still just get one link because I'm giving all the kids that pre-filled quiz and then they have to fix it. But for like the one that I do for the teacher failures, if I've got a list of 1,000 kids on a spreadsheet, I get 1,000 different links because I create one with a formula and then just copy down. So then I'll have to. So then let's say a teacher had 30 of those 1,000. I'll copy and paste that teacher section and then email it those 30 to that teacher.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. That's a different, it's like I said, it's an out of the box thinking strategy. It's a different type of workflow that you wouldn't normally hear about because one, probably people maybe not aware of it. And the need for that may not be there. So that's interesting that you use that feature to get your work done. So that's interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, just to be upfront with you, I don't have a whole lot of teachers on campus using that strategy because it does take a little while to learn it, to get used to it. You have to change. It's not coding, but you do have to cell reference and stuff like that within the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I would think that they wouldn't bother with that because it's a learning curve.
Yep.
If they don't get they don't put the time in and they want to get the investment back, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
but yeah, for something for you or for me, that's different that we can create and have it and give it to them.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I'll have to check that out. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
I have a YouTube tutorial. I can put it in the show notes. I can include that.
Okay. I did invite you to the Wakelet collection for
Yes.
this episode. I think it was your school email. So you can also put it in there.
Okay, perfect.
So whatever's easy for you, that would be good. Because I know I'll be looking at your references because I find them very interesting. It's just different. It's definitely different.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the last one I wanted to share is also different, not a one that you don't see a whole lot of teachers using, and that's Google My Maps.
Mm.
That's not a very well-known tool, but I used this one last year and had a whole lot of success with it. One of the things that I was charged with, since I wasn't in the classroom, our district is doing a big push on CCMR, college career military readiness. And so the students that didn't have like a high enough SAT score or high enough ACT score, or haven't passed an AP test yet, those students had to show another way of being deemed college and career ready. Our district uses the TSIA test, which is what a lot of the community colleges use to see if they need to put a student in a remedial math class or a regular math class. So if student passes that test, then they are deemed they're college ready. So I was given a group of 100 seniors, and I was they had already failed this test at least once earlier in the year, and I was told try and get them to pass. And so this was in like, I think it was April of last school year. So it's a month before graduation, trying to get seniors to do something that wasn't required for graduation.
Yeah, good luck.
Yes. So I had a full day with these students. So I had different rotations that they went through with different teachers. But for my station, we did this Google My Maps activity. And so basically it's like a learning board or a choice board put onto a Google My Map, is the kind of the gist of it. So this TSI test had 4 different main areas of math. It had algebra, geometry, statistics, and then I think maybe an intermediate or an advanced algebra. So each of those different content areas, I put different colors on the Google My Map. So geometry were all yellow markers across the United States. Statistics was all green. And so basically, I told students that they were going to take a road trip from coast to coast, and they had to make at least 2 stops at each of the different colors. So they had to do 2 geometry problems, 2 statistic problems, and so forth. But then they also, since they had already taken this test, they had data on what their weakest area was. So they knew, okay, I really struggled with the statistics. So I told them, so I do 2 of each, but the area that you were the weakest in, maybe do a few more of those as you go from coast to coast. But at each of those markers, some of them were just a picture of a practice problem. Some were links to a Khan Academy video. Some were links to a Desmos activity or a Pear Deck activity. So there was just different things that students could do, different activities that they could go through on this map as they were going from coast to coast.
And so did they finish it?
And the goal wasn't necessarily to finish. I wasn't taking it for a grade, but it was just it was basically test prep is what it was.
Yeah.
But there was too much content to go over, and then not every student needed to know the geometry, or not every student needed to know the statistics. So it was a way to differentiate that test prep. And so the students loved it, though. Again, it wasn't, I was trying to motivate them because they didn't have to do this to graduate. So I told them we're going to take a road trip, and no road trip is good without music. So bring your headphones. You can listen to music while you're doing this. Snacks. So bring your drinks, bring your chips, and you can also do your road trip solo, or you can carpool and work with somebody. And so I had students do that. I had some students that partnered up, some students that worked by themselves. However they wanted to do their test prep, basically.
That's interesting. All right. So that's in the show notes as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to check that out. That's interesting. Because I know like there's different ways that you can, well, I guess with Google Earth, but even Google My Maps, you can measure the distance and get like the area, the parameter of different, buildings or parks or whatnot, and you can, different angles. You can create a whole geography, mathematics integration lesson on different things.
Yep.
But it's interesting to see that you actually used it to take them on the road trip, and then they actually picked according to the color code of the place mark of where their weakness was to solve. So yeah, definitely like to check that out. That's interesting.
Yep. And the important thing is it worked too. I think it was
Worked.
77. I think it was 77% of the students ended up passing that test
Wow.
when they retook it.
It's different, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's it's again, it's like out of the box thinking. It's definitely different. And like it's a hidden gem, you know, Google, the geo tools are a hidden gem, you know, Google Earth, and Google My Maps, you know, it's a hidden gem. You can do so much with it, but people just don't know about it, and they don't know enough to about the tool to incorporate it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just getting people familiar with it. I like that though. So I'm going to look into that and see what I can do to borrow it. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good. And like you said, it is different, but I knew I had to do something different
Yeah.
because these students had already failed the test at least once, some of them multiple times, and it wasn't required. So I knew I had to do something out of the box to, one, have them motivated, but then two, that it would actually work.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Well, that would definitely did it. That's for sure. I mean, you know, usually when you do something different, you get the kids do get hooked in.
Yep.
They do because it's something new, and then they want to do it on their own, and they want to be the teacher and show their friends. So it definitely does like you do get paid back with trying something new. Definitely.
Yep.
I agree. Well, that was a lot. Like I didn't expect all that, and I'm glad that you shared. I know we went over a little bit, but that's okay. I think that the content that you shared was very important and helpful, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing it. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. It was my pleasure, Kim.
Yeah, it was definitely nice. I'm definitely gonna check it out and hopefully pass some of the information along to some of the math teachers at my school, even though middle school, you know, what they're willing to do now during remote learning is, you know, just you don't want to put too much on teachers and students right now, but maybe for September,
Yeah.
it may end up just having that information, you know, in the back of their mind, and then, you know, they can go back into that the bank of the information and grab it and implement it. But I definitely going to check it out because I think it's great. I think it's out of the box. That's what these kids need. And you digitize in your math class using all these different tools, and you gave plenty of examples of it. So, and the basic one is the best one. Take a picture of your work and put it in Google Slides. Like
Yep.
that's the best one. So again, like that's nothing, you know, you're not reinventing the wheel. The kids are taking their notes on the paper, take a picture, boom, you're done. So you could always fall back on that. But anyway, we're going to conclude the show today. So let me share my screen really fast. Alrighty. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you can visit my website, thesweettalk.com. And on my homepage here, you'll see the latest episode. If you'd like to be a guest on my show, please fill out this guest form and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Right now, I am scheduling for July, so I'm very thankful for that. If you'd like to support my mission and become a sponsor or make a donation, please fill out the sponsorship form, and I will get back to you as soon as I can with that. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, join the Facebook group, the Sweet Talk. You can check out who's going to be on the show by checking out the schedule. The episode page here lists all of the episodes that I've done in the past with the show notes as well as the YouTube videos. So that information will be here. Google Classroom, Alice Keeler and I, we just finished writing our book, Stepping Up to Google Classroom, and it is available now on Amazon. So you can certainly go to that website on Amazon and check it out. It's a great resource for beginners to get started on using Google Classroom. And really, it was really supposed to be out in June. But with everything going on, thought that it would be helpful to try to make it happen sooner than later. And Dave Burgess Consultant and Publishing, they were able to do that for us and for people out there, because right now it's with all of this remote learning and using digital tools, a lot of people, are overwhelmed even more because they're not familiar with different platforms. So we hope that this book will be helpful to many people. Well, with that said, thank you for being on, Craig. I really appreciate it. I think that you brought a lot of insight on using EdTech tools and how you can strategize your lessons with different tools. And I appreciate you sharing. So thank you again. It was great having you on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for letting me be on.
And until next time, stay safe, be healthy, and I will see you later. Have a great evening. Bye.